What's up, YouTube? Yeah, I had recently gotten back on TikTok just to see if it was any different after it almost got banned. That told me right there that there's a lot of rich people keeping that thing around. Just like The View. The View's there to stir up crap too. But anyway, um, shortly before I got permanently banned this time, I went, you know how when you scroll through and you see sometimes some people doing a live will pop up, and I seen a live pop up that had the fallen angel Azazel, and he did. I don't know if they were using some type of, you know, I guess they had to have, because the thing standing in the back wearing it looked like a cosplay costume of this type of demon. Um, yeah, he's just standing behind the person talking, and he's talking somewhat, you know. Of course, he sounds demonic. And I was just shocked to even see that people are entertaining that, for one, and for two, that TikTok is allowing something like that on it. So I hopped in it, and I see all the stuff that people saying and all the crazy, nasty, evil things that they're talking about. And I only had one question, and apparently they did not like my question. I wonder if anybody can guess what that question was. Don't worry, I'll tell you here in a minute. But I typed into their little live or chat or whatever you want to call it. I said, "What are you going to do when Jesus returns?" Because he was talking about all kinds of crazy stuff. And when I said that, the guy near, like talking in front of him, and whatever that thing was standing behind him, looked directly at the camera. And then all of a sudden, I was blocked from there. And then about 24 hours later, maybe a little bit more than that, I was permanently banned. I laughed. Obviously, they did not like that. But that proves a lot of things just with that right there. It started off as an angel of light, right? And then now they've got so many people that are demonic, they don't even care about showing what it was really about. All of it. Even the good book says the web would cover the world. Where do you think this web came from? ARPA, which is DARPA, which is also controlled by Rothschilds, which everything's controlled by them. Yeah, I had a couple of people tell me that there was a family that nobody knows about and it starts with an O. And I looked that family up, and yeah, they're into a lot of the same things. But I'm talking about the name that keeps coming up that tried to stay hidden. But because their name couldn't, because of where they were putting their foot at, they had to make themselves look like a decent person at some point. But they didn't. They even let it out with controlling the Napoleon War. They were on both sides of that. Nobody paid attention to that. And nobody ever paid attention to the fact that all these wars and conflicts that they started, technically they weren't really worried about which side won. Yeah, they would still be in control, and they were getting paid from both sides. Now, just because they would want one side to win and not the other is not because of any type of money. They were already getting that. And people, remember that. Well, an EpiPen, and I know most people are going to think this is a stretch, but there's a lot of things leading back to Epstein and the Rothschilds. Even Epstein, in multiple different occasions, told people that he represented the Rothschilds. And That was who was at the head of the bank that was allowing most of his transactions through the Swiss bank account. Imagine that. Central banks, Rothschilds. These are female, by the way. Yeah, you'd think that once females took over power of these, you know, evil bloodline families, that they would shut it down, right? They're the ones that are so sweet and innocent and, you know, powerful and right? Apparently. Well, how come their ancestor was the first one that was ever possessed by the devil? That's strange. But okay. Just like a lot of this stuff people blame on Cain. Yes, he did do a lot of it. Where'd he come from? Where'd that evil come from? His mom. See what I mean? How a lot of people just overlook that. And yes, he's responsible for what he did, but it still came from his mother. Would have never been there if it wasn't for what she did. And also, me just having an opinion and thinking about stuff, but we've heard a lot about these, so-called lizard people. And before I used to think it was bullcrap. I thought people had bumped their head way too many times. Then I started thinking about the thing that manipulated Eve was a lizard. Right. So, well, I mean, to me, it sounds like a lizard because the Bible says that it had arms and legs before this serpent did this. And we call all that species of reptiles, right? Okay. Well, we have people saying that there are reptilian people, that they have knowledge and that they came from an advanced civilization. Uh, Sounds like the fallen angels. I mean, I can't believe people believe this dude and this dolphin story. I can't even believe I'm entertaining this reptilian thing. I mean, I thought that was just the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life until I start paying attention to what Genesis said. And I mean, now remember, there was also things called dragons. Oh yeah. And if you see the different types of dragons that people would, draw from back in those days, there is a couple of them that looks like a snake with legs and arms. Well, looks like it walks on four legs, but you get what I mean. I don't think there ever was dinosaurs. I really don't. Just like I don't think anybody ever went to space. I think the stuff that they drew and all that stuff was from these fallen angels. Just like NASA and all them manipulate you into thinking that they're hiding extraterrestrial life, and a lot of people believe we have technology and stuff from them. No, we don't. It came from the fallen angels. Metal, electronics, propulsion, flight, all that stuff. Even the defibrillator, and most people do not pay attention to this, but the good book says the only one that is allowed to resurrect is God. And remember, he destroyed a civilization before because of what they were doing. And he said if he didn't destroy them, there would be nothing they couldn't do. Well, Looks like there's demonic spirits that their physical was destroyed, but not their spiritual. Have returned. We have accepted it, and now our second round is going to end in fire because we should have learned from our ancestors before, and we didn't. We did the same thing again. So, and hey, I'm not saying I'm a saint. I've been brainwashed and tricked into a lot of this stuff too. I just didn't realize a lot of it until after, like now. I didn't believe it. So I started really piecing things together, or some stuff just came out of the blue and showed me without a shadow of a doubt, this is what happened. And it's like, what the? And we all have had stuff similar like that happen. People be feeding us a line of bull, and we believe it until all the truth comes out. And then we see just how well they were at, manipulating and lying, and we can't believe it. Well, this good book also says that him and his Antichrist system would be the great deceivers. And look around. We have an unseen, I don't know what you want to call it. I call it a wave that has went over this world, and it has slowly done it. And people have slowly turned to it. Even I started to. Yeah, man. I was in church since I was 4. Thought, what day of worship was Sunday. Thought all this, you know, was all true. Probably because I was a kid and I was surrounded by a whole bunch of people telling me it was, and of course, that level of, you know, wisdom or knowledge, I had no clue. So, of course, I got to listen to something, especially if it seems true, which is what told me that there was a Holy Spirit there, but I didn't know how wrong I was until I became an atheist and then ended up talking to some Jewish people, some Jehovah's Witness people for a while, not just, one day or one week. I was talking to these people the whole time I wasn't believing in any type of God. And I wasn't the type of atheist that believes in witchcraft and all that stuff. I just didn't believe there was a real God. I really thought something weird happened and we happened to crawl out of it. But the more and more I went on, I was proven that there's no way that's true. There's no way. We had to have. Hmm, it has had to have a creator. Anything we've ever tried to create ourselves, it had to have our hands on it, and we had to work at it, and we had to sometimes scrap it and rebuild the whole thing. The process of creating anything has always went that way. Even Cat Williams makes a joke out of it. Trying stuff, don't work. Trying stuff, don't work. Right? What I mean is, we know that we have to, you know, pay attention to our creation and critique it to make sure it works and functions like it should. Which that's what I mean when I say there's no way all this could have been created unless somebody controlled it or something. Because if it just happened to form out of nowhere, nothing about it would be the way it is. I mean, you see how in science labs and all that, they have to have a completely clean area when they're, testing and mixing stuff together so they can see if anything. They basically cancel out every element. That way, they're only adding the two elements they want to see the reaction of those two without anything else. Right. And then they build off of that, or, so on and so forth, depending on what they're doing. But they control the environment to make sure only these two things are in it, besides air, because you can't really do much about air. And I still think the air around us is God. We just call it air. I believe it's His breath that we're breathing in every 2 minutes, just like Adam. I think that's why the Bible tells you that. And then people just take it for granted that it's theirs after that. I don't think so. This gas that we breathe in, we can't duplicate. Just like water, we can't duplicate it. We can make things sweat and make it form, but that's still under the laws of His creation. Yeah. Greenhouse effect, all that stuff is what He came up with, not us. I think the reason why water irrigation and the way we do farming is wrong is because the way we were doing it back then fought a lot of things. A lot of diseases and situations have arose from getting away from that type of thing. Cutting off fingers and toes or getting mauled by a, baler or this, that, or the other, you know, things like that. Didn't happen that much on stuff like that. Not only that, you had to carry your water from a well, which gave you a lot of cardio, a lot of strength, right? We don't have that now. We have dangerous metal boxes that carry us, or we pipe it through the ground, which can lead to all kinds of bacteria and issues later. Imagine that. See what I mean? The old ways were more solid, they lasted longer, and they were harder, but they were worth it. The easier ways today don't last as long, use up more resources, cause more problems and medical problems than anything. So, how are they better? Because they save time? Doesn't look like it. What's the sense in saving an hour if you have a 90% chance of ending up in the ER or giving yourself a disease that later on you can never get rid of? Sounds like to me I'd rather work that hour and stay away from all that. Yeah, cardio is one of the main reasons why people end up with heart problems. And, idle hand is another thing that causes a lot of people to do bad things, being bored. Trust me, if you had a homestead and a farm and you had to go out and hunt and fish for everything, you'd be begging for a boring day. You would be begging for a big storm so you couldn't go out, which you would still have to go out because there's stuff you got to do. Well, people used to smash their fingers and get cuts and end up with infections. That's because they became lazy and didn't do what they were supposed to do. I'll tell you one thing: I've smashed my fingers, I've cut them, and I tell you what, I'm no bullcrap. Some of those cuts should have taken a lot of stitches and a long time to heal. Okay, I'm talking about a long time, and I shouldn't be able to use my hand that had that cut in that spot because I would keep busting it open with stitches, right? Okay. Well, I took a McDonald's napkin. Why? Because it was biodegradable, and when it breaks down, the stuff becomes a clotting agent. Okay. I used I would eat a lot of garlic and mustard because it puts a lot of sodium in your body. It also works as an inflammatory and an antibiotic. Now, I know most people wouldn't believe me unless I videotaped it, but by the next day, when I took that, went to put my new bandage on, which was duct tape and McDonald's napkins, it was not anything from the stores. And I only did that, so I could work. It was sealed. There'd be a little bit of broken skin at the surface of it, so it had a little bit more healing to do. But the deep cut part was healed back together just about every time. I don't know what that is, but that didn't take no 6 weeks with stitches to heal. I never caught any infections. I never had to lose any digits or nothing. I drank a lot of water, mustard, garlic, and raw onion. Yep, worked perfectly. Yeah, I think the worst cut I ever had, it sprinkled a little bit after the first day, but by the second day there was nothing. And that was a real deep one. That was across the whole palm of my hand, from the tip of my pointer finger all the way down to the bottom. That's because I was loading my carpet knife and it flipped out of my hand, and the blade went right across the center of my palm. I walked outside, put McDonald's napkins on it, wrapped it up, made caps for each finger just in case blood went around it, and finished my work. By the time I got home, that thing was already 75% healed back shut. There was still a little bit, and it would still, like I said, bleed a very little. And I was amazed. I couldn't believe that. That was after the first day. And that's from leaning on it with a kicker. You got to hold the kicker with your palm of your hand, put all your weight on it. So that would bust it open right there, right? Nope, didn't do that. That's what I'm talking about. All that hard manual labor with a cut. And you'd think I'd end up with, losing a limb or getting a real bad infection. But nope, not once. I worked framing with a broken hand. hmm Sheeting a house, putting on trusses, We built a whole breezeway. Well, a whole garage and a breezeway. My bad. Well, it was a big garage. I mean, it had two bay doors, but it was huge. You could fit way more than two cars in there. And I'm not talking about all 4 or 6. I'm talking about you probably fit like 20 or 30 cars in that thing. It was long and wide. Pretty sure it was like 35 by 44, maybe 46. But it was huge. And then at the end of it, the homeowner wanted, it was so close to the house that they wanted a breezeway built in between. And at first, we were going to come back and do the breezeway later, but we had all the material and everything to do it there. So we just did it. Yeah, no cast. I had a temporary cast on it. I was still doing side work, and then a friend of mine needed some help on framing. And I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that. He's like, dude, isn't your hand broke? And I took my temporary cast thing off and said, nope, not anymore. He just looked at me. He said, you're signing a waiver. I said, okay. And I did. I worked with a broken hand. Never got any gangrene, never got anything. By the time I went to the doctor's appointment for them to give me a real cast, he already said it was healed. He said there's a knuckle that formed in it, but that was it. It wasn't really a knuckle, it's just a knot. He said that was most likely because the bones wasn't completely lined up. Which I don't care. It's healed. You want to talk about pain? Woohoo! Yeah, man. When you're doing framing, at least the companies I've done framing with, you're pretty much a chimpanzee. Your hands and your feet are what you use to get around the job. There's some people that, use walkboards and ladders, but there's some stuff you can't use that stuff for. It's just quicker to climb. You don't get down and build up freaking 12-story freaking scaffolding when you could just climb. I'm climbing. OSHA. Yeah, yeah. They can stay away. I had a harness. Just wasn't attached to nothing. It's called a work belt. It's attached to me. That's a harness. Kind of. How the hell is that a harness? Well, it harnesses your tools to you, so it's a harness. And some of them help to hold your pants up. So I've seen guys with those too. Or some that have the suspender shit on their belts because they think they need this big freaking. I don't know, dude. I guess they're planning on holding the whole job site in that belt. And they don't. They hold a hammer, a few screws, which that doesn't make any sense, and a tape measure. What the hell? Anyway, I think they do that just to make people laugh. I don't know. Because it damn sure is funny. You paid all this money for that rig, and this is what you carry? Really? You can carry half that truck on that belt, and that's what you got? Okay. And that's the one that always runs around and points at stuff and tries to tell you how to do stuff, and then he'll run to the other side of the job. Ain't doing shit but talking. He's running, but that's about it. Those are the ones you want to take their shoes and staple them to the floor and just say, stay there. I'm the one not talking and I'm building. You are talking and not building nothing. How do you get the pay that you do? Because you're a shit talker, that's why. Yeah, I used to just shake my head at those guys and just keep working. There were days that they got on my damn nerves. I'd tell them, you know what? There's a truck over there. Go sit in the truck and leave me alone. Sometimes they'd listen and throw a fit like a little kid, kicking dirt and everything. Tell me what to do. I'm gonna go eat my lunch. It's 9 o'clock. Go eat your lunch. Yeah, that's when they come out from their lunch and their nap 5 hours later. Damn, there's a lot done. Yeah, 'cause you ain't here bugging me. Now go back to the truck. I can't sit in that truck. Well, go somewhere else and talk someone's ear off. Fucker. And then joke about it the whole ride to the next job. Yeah, it's a lot easier to work when somebody's not distracting you the whole time. Huh, come here. We got duct tape. I'd shut up. You will be hog-tied, duct tape, and stuck in the bed of your truck for the remainder of this job if you don't knock it off. Oh, there's a lot of shenanigans that go down on those job sites. They sent one of the, well, he wasn't the boss, but he was one of the main dudes. And he went in the fucking outhouse and they got tired of him. And they freaking put bungee cords and everything around it, picked it up, put it on a flatbed, and took him to the next job site. Oh man, I thought all of them weren't going to be fired. Nope. He come back in a taxi, cussing at everybody. You motherfuckers. I couldn't stop laughing. Yeah, we lost some time that day. I was working the whole time just watching it, just laughing. I knew what they were doing. Well, I didn't know they were going to load them up on a truck and take them to another job site. I didn't know that. But I knew that they were going to shut that or pin that door shut and fuck with him. I just didn't know the other part of it till they started doing it, and I'm like, oh shit, we're all fired. He's gonna kill us. We're done. He was a good sport, kinda. Oh man, we were working on the condos in Perryville, and some of their units were like a U, and people would shoot bent nails. They would use the window opening and put these rubber bands across them and bend nails and be shooting them at the crews walking past the other openings where windows were gonna go. They didn't have any windows in yet. Yeah, man. All of a sudden, you'd be getting shots fired. You want to talk about a hornet? Those things hurt, especially to look across the way and see construction workers just laughing their ass off. Oh yeah, and then you got to try and set up a return fire before they nail the shit out of you. Oh yeah, it was fun though. I don't know how productive it was, but it was fun. Especially when you think you won, and you get to walk away and you get smacked in the back with it. Oh man, that was just great. You want to talk about a freaking pain signal straight up and down the spine, boy. Woo! Yeah, that normally started another battle. Mm. Yeah, we did some crazy stuff. Always got the job done though. Made it look really, really good. Yeah, I was 23 almost. It was summer of me being 23. Um, I got a thing sent in the mail saying that I had made enough work credits that I could retire through the state or, county, whatever. And I'm like, what the hell? And I went and showed it to my uncle, and he was like, yeah, I mean, you've done a lot of work. And I said, well, no shit, Sherlock. Yeah, I was basically working uh, almost triple weeks every week because normal work week is 40 hours, and there was times we would work 120 hours, and that was pretty common. That's why our average for a work week was 120 hours, 6 days a week, 20 hours a day. Yeah, I used to get Sunday off, but that's not really a day off now, is it? Right. Not when you're coming home at 2, 3, 4 a.m. Sunday morning, and you started at, you know, 4 or 5 Saturday morning. Oh yeah, he was greedy. Once I got really fast, man, he would load our days up, bro. I never ever got out of a 100 to 120 hour work week unless I told him I'm taking this weekend off. You can bite me, and he just laughed. Which I barely ever did that. I worked for freaking a year and a half before I ever even said that to him. I'm like, you know what? I need more than just one freaking set of hours free. I'm taking the whole weekend. He's like, but nothing. Get somebody else to help you do it. You can live without me for one day. You'll be fine. Oh man, I played hell all that next week. That motherfucker would pile so much shit on me just for not showing up that one day. Oh man. He taught me real quick. Yeah, you can have that day off, but you're gonna work your ass off for the next month. And I'm not talking about just, 100 hours, man, that's a long time. I'm talking about making that 100 hours the worst hours you could ever possibly work in a week in your fucking life. You'd be cussing at every second of it just because you know this SOB is making it worse on you just because he's mad you didn't show up for one day. One day, you fucker. Well, there's no way he acted like that after a year and a half. And you only took, no, it was a year and a half, and I took one day. Yep. I went through a breakup with my girlfriend through this and still stayed working. Met every hour he wanted me to every day. Oh, well, you broke up with. Yeah, it's a little worse than that. But anyway, had another girl that shortly after, well, it wasn't shortly, it was about 6, 8 months. So I guess that's considered shortly. I don't know. To me, it felt significant amount of time. I wasn't ready to date anyway, and I told this girl that, and she was another one that just wouldn't leave me alone. Kept popping up everywhere I was, and somehow she ended up popping up at my uncle's. Oh, I have a family member that lives in a town right next, and they did. They lived like pretty much right off the road that my uncle lived on. But anyway, I was just like, wow, I just can't catch a break. Of course, I was nice. She wanted to date. I said, sure. Literally, just like that. And yeah, she had some words about that. What do you mean, sure? You sound very enthused. I said, I'm not. I do not expect anything to come out of this at all. I expect it to be a disaster, just like the last one. Well, you got to make it the best. No, I did that, and it was still a disaster. yeah, that's all I ever did was work, come home, and that was it. Never went out to clubs. Had my chance to go out to strip clubs and all that. I didn't do that. And that's only because I don't know what he was trying to do. I guess he was trying to get me to start going to bars and shit. I don't know. Yeah, once I turned 21, man, that's all he ever tried to do was, I guess, because he liked drinking beer. I don't know. But yeah, I'd sit out in the van, and if I was dating somebody at the time, I'd just talk to them. Or I'd go in and eat pit beef from the pit beef stand that was in the parking lot. That's how I became friends with the owners of the pit beef stand. That dude used to hook me up all the time. He knew what I was doing. First time I walked in there, he's like, "You're sitting in the van?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Why?" I said, "I ain't going in there." He started laughing. He's like, "What, you afraid of him?" I said, "You damn right. There's demons and I don't know how many STDs in that bitch. I ain't going in there." He started laughing. Even if I wasn't with somebody, which he did this when I wasn't dating people, I still wouldn't go in there. I only went in there when I was 16 and we were putting the carpet in. That's all we were doing. And I didn't stay in that bitch. I didn't like it. Nope. I did not like the feeling of being in that place at all. I don't know. I just didn't. Man, they don't call me what they want. I'm just not that type of dude. But yeah, man. Just figured I'd get on here and talk a little bit more about some stuff I was thinking about. Well, how come you always talk about work and you know, your past? Because that's my memories. That's what I talk about. These are things that I've done through my life, and there's some people that might not find it interesting or whatnot, and that's not really why I put it out. You just never know what people can relate to, what you might share that you've been through that might help somebody else, or that somebody else might hear and help you. So sometimes it's for that reason, not intentionally, but sometimes that's what comes out of it. Sometimes people might be having a bad day and just need to hear that somebody's had it worse than them, or, having a bad time just like them, or went through something similar. Sometimes that alleviates things. To me, it just works as like I guess a pressure valve, so you don't have to keep thoughts and memories in your head so much. Well, the people that are ashamed of their past, yeah, I would see why they would do it differently. I'm not ashamed of anything I've done. My heart's always been in the right spot. So even when I turned away from my religion, it still was. I just, so much bad stuff happening. I had to remember what free will was and the fact that He already gave us everything. We did this, not him. Good people get bad things happen basically as a test. And I even went through that test. And look what it did. It almost turned me thinking that there was no God and bad things just keep happening and there isn't anything you can do about it. Sometimes bad things happen that you can't do anything about it, but it's normally because of the evilness of another person or laziness, which is on certain levels can become evil. There's that idle hand again. So, y'all have a good one. I'll be on here talking about other stuff, I'm sure.